Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. So as you can see behind me, I've actually got this black E60 back in here. Now, as many of you guys remember, I replaced the CCV. I put it back outside. Then today, I went to start it. It actually started, but it actually struggled to start. And then it threw up a transmission light error. Now, I've had to remove everything I've actually done to only find a problem to which I'll go over in a second that an animal has actually caused on this car. Now, the reason this has actually happened is purely because I left the skid plate off underneath of the car because I hadn't actually finished with it. So I just stuck it outside and left the skid plate off. Then when I went out to start it, I ended up with this problem, which I'm going to be going over and showing you right now. So we're going to have to repair this so then I can stick it back outside, and I'm also going to have to put the skid plate back on because obviously we've got a lot of rabbits, rats, and I don't know what's actually happened here, but they've actually caused this car to have an issue, which I know many of you guys are going to suffer, or you have previously suffered on your M52 engine. So let's get onto it.
Goddamn, get it done, will ya? Woo. When the blow up now, everybody's so unusual with it. Shit. But said times in his rhymes, cause his memories. We running through New York, so you know.
So if you can see here, guys, I've actually took off the whole CCV, took off all the wiring, trying to trace the fault. Now, to the naked eye, you wouldn't be able to see the fault, and a lot of people wouldn't be able to diagnose it very easily. They'll take it to a garage, and the garage will be stumped as well and start replacing sensors, this, that, the other, which luckily, I know what I'm doing with these cars, so it's quite easy to be able to diagnose. So if you see down here, this is our junction box that we got here, and you can see this is where all the connectors go for controlling the electronics of the engine. Now, as I said to you, when I went to start it, it took a long time to start. It sounded like it's struggling to start, then it fired into life, and then through a transmission error light. Now, upon diagnosing and going over everything on the car, I'm just going to show you now. You'll be able to see right here this cable. Now, if you can see, this cable has been chewed. Now, I did have to strip the wiring back to try and find that, because if you pull it up, you can see there, it goes into the sleeving, which you wouldn't be able to see. So I've had to strip this back, and I found that the wire here was actually broken, which actually this plug goes to the crankshaft sensor. You can see there, it's all been chewed and broken apart as well. And this is the plug I'm now gonna have to renew. I have got, luckily, another wiring harness from an M52 engine. So I'm gonna be soldering on a new plug and getting this sorted. Now, for your normal average Joe, this is not gonna be easy to diagnose, because as you can see, I've had to cut the sleeve in to actually find the fault. But to anyone that knows this, you'll know if a, rabbit, whatever you want to call it, has chewed this. They're going to have chewed down here, which they did, and they've nibbled on this wire. Now, if many of you guys don't know about this crankshaft position sensor plug, this actually hooks on to your manifold. There's a little bracket to keep this out of the way. Now, if you don't put this back, it will end up hanging very low down here. Now, if you can see, there's no skid plate on the car. You can see the floor of my garage right through there. So that's what they've done. They've got up and chewed this. Obviously, I'm not happy. I've been checking all the other connectors, and it looks like it's just this one. But if you can see, it wasn't very easy to diagnose either, because it was actually broken inside the sleeving. So when you look at it, you think there's nothing wrong. Luckily, I knew there was something wrong just by this part right here. As I said, we do have a new plug. I'm going to be putting it back on and then getting this car at the shop, because I've got other things to do. But obviously it had a fault and I needed to sort it, and this was the fault. So if you do have a no crank, no start on your M52, M53, M54, this will be your issue, especially if you see a transmission light and your car sounds like it's struggling to turn over. This is the problem, because this communicates with the crankshaft position sensor, which is on the flywheel for the transmission and obviously the starter. So it's not actually using the crankshaft position sensor to start the car, it's actually using all the other sensors to start it, while the crankshaft position sensor isn't even in use, which can actually affect drivability, obviously affect your gearbox, can also end up destroying your flywheel and your starter as well at the same time, because it's not knowing the position to actually turn the car over in. So do be aware of that, and make sure you check this. These can easily be broken as well without people realizing that they're attached to the harness when you go to pull the manifold up as well. So do be aware of this, because this not got a lot of room. As you can see here, it's a very short cable, but they make it short for that reason. So don't get in the way, but you can see here, there's not much play at all to get over to the crankshaft position sensor. So do be aware of that. And if you do have any issues, check your junction box and make sure to strip the loom back to find any broken wiring. Okay guys, so as you'll see here, I've now repaired and put on the new plug. And if you can see here, I've wrapped this in very, very strong black electrical tape with the actual plastic insulation around it as well. So now I've double protected the wires. It's very, very solid with the tape and the double plastic insulation. So now nothing should be getting to that ever again. It's still flexible, so you can see here, it will still be able to push into the crankshaft position sensor, but it just means I've made it very, very strong that nothing can get to it. I soldered the wires, taped the wires on top of that, then retaped them again. So that should be solid now for the rest of its life on this junction box. As I said, if you do have this issue, do make sure to check the junction box, because if you do have your skid plate off or you don't have one, rats, any kind of animals will live in here, get in here and chew up all your wiring, just like they did with this. And I know this is a common problem. Many of you guys have messaged me before telling me this has happened. So if you have a no crank, no start, or your car is starting but you've got a transmission light on and your car's running quite rough and it's taking a long time to start, this will be your issue. See how easily I've wrapped this? I'm not gonna show you how to reinstall the manifold because you guys have already seen that, but that is the culprit right there, and now it's been fully repaired. If you do get the same kind of plug, you'll have the wiring laid out already, so you won't have to figure out what wires go where. You can just easily solder a new plug with the existing colored cables to your original wiring loom, and that's it. So now I'm going to show you now what the car sounds like now the crankshaft position sensor is actually working. Now before, when it was broken, it would do a very, very long crank and then turn over and you end up with a transmission light and an engine management light. But now we'll see how quick it turns over. Now we've actually sorted out all the wiring for the crankshaft position sensor. We've put everything back together. So let's go ahead and turn the car over. Now you guys should be able to hear it turn over, how nice it should sound now. It should turn over very quickly. And just like that, it starts straight up. And there you have it guys. That's now just started straight up the way it should be and the way it should sound. After the crankshaft position sensor was obviously choosed up by a mouse, and we know we had a long cranking time, but now we've gone back to having a short cranking time, which is excellent. So that is how you fix your no crank, no start, and if your crankshaft position sensor is broken, that's how you repair it. Okay guys, so there you have it. I've now shown you how to repair your wiring on your crankshaft position sensor. As I said, this is a very, very common problem, and now it's actually happened to me. As I said, my cars are very, very far away from the shop all the time. So, you know, animals are probably getting inside because everything around me is just country. So we're getting rabbits, rats, you know, muntjacs, you name it. We've got them all here, which are basically baby deers. Something could have had it. I don't know what it was. Obviously it was my fault though. It never happened before I left the under tray off and everything was just exposed. I've now put it back on before I send this back outside. Obviously we've still got a lot to get on with on this car. Just waiting for one of the last bits to actually come, and I'll be showing you everything we've actually done on this car. But as I said, if you do have a crank no start, do check your crank position sensor, purely because, especially if you remove the manifold, they're very, very easy to miss, and you'll just pull it out and not even know it's there, and then your wires will end up breaking off. So thank you very much for watching guys. It's BMW Dr. Dean here, and goodbye.